Makes you sneeze.
Okay, I'm just warning you. I'm going live right now. Abba. Everything you say is now recorded.
Down to my allergy. That's right. Okay, relax.
You're in the camera.
Okay, everybody ready? Everybody settled in here?
Does everybody have paper? I'll just take one.
One second, I need to get the mic.
Where's the mic?
Where's the mic? Is there?
Oh, it was hanging on.
Going to get it?
Yeah.
It's not mine. Where is it?
I got it.
Nice hat. Down here.
Putting up for sale.
Remembering when.
Like myself.
Yes, you don't worry. Won't be the first one.
Hoshana Rabbah every year for some reason. For something wrong. I don't know what you say on Hoshana Rabbah, but
Very high.
yeah. Never works out.
So first of all, Yontif, there's a longer extension if you want.
It's okay.
I don't know if this works as a legal Chanukas Habayis, but it's for me it's a Chanukas Habayis. It's really the first thing that we're doing here is Tzibur and Baruch Hashem, and the only thing I miss about my old house is the garden kiddush and the shir, but the fact is that Baruch Hashem, this is mine. Ratza Adam b'kav shaloi mitisha kav shel chaveri.
It was our pleasure to sit and enjoy your company with you.
Yeah, so it's in the house, and the sukkah is samach v'nira. So you can read the Megillah in here. You can blow the shofar in here. Whatever samach v'nira needs, you can do over here. That's the first thing. Also the dedications here. Let me just read them out. The shir was dedicated generously Lilu Nishmas Dina Bas David Chai HaKohen, also by Pella Dickman, Lilu Nishmas, her father, Yekusil Yehuda ben Menashe, whose yahrzeit was the first day of Sukkot, and Lilu Nishmas, her aunt, Mancha Fega Bas Menashe, Holocaust survivor, whose yahrzeit is Hoshana Rabbah, by Rav Chaim Jungreis, Dr. Chaim Jungreis, Lilu Nishmas, his parents, Tovia ben Yoel Tzvi, and Shalamis Bas Moshe Heinrich, and as a schus for those injured and taken captive during the war. Like the Limud and Tefillah on Hoshana Rabbah night has a big koach. Like we should concentrate on the learning and learn together, but like just to know, like in the back of our minds, front of our minds, wherever it belongs, it's a tremendous koach to Hoshana Rabbah. It's a Yom Adin unto itself in different parts of dinim. And it might be the part of din that we need, the part of chesed that we need. And, we're talking about on Yontiv that the whole Sukkot is Shabtamayim B'Sasain. It's all Hamtokas Hadinim. And by Baruch Levinsky, Lilu Nishmas, his great uncle Rafal ben Yoina, whose yahrzeit was on Sukkot. And there are some sheets here if you don't have, so there are sheets around. I started learning Rambam Hilchos Deos after many years, the Yud Gimel Ikrim of the Rambam that we learned together. Every year, Hoshana Rabbah, we learned another Ikr, and that must have been 13 years. So we did Yud Gimel Ikrim, and last year we started Hilchos Deos. Hilchos Deos is not like the Yud Gimel Ikrim, where the Rambam is just explaining here's the 13 principles of faith. Hilchos Deos is about so many things, and we spoke last year. So it really gives me the ability to talk about whatever I want to talk about, because that's what Hilchos Deos is really what I want to talk about. But so far, there's a lot there. So far, last year I spoke about Hilchos Deos Perek Beis, Halacha Vav, which read together. And this year I'm going to talk about Perek Beis, Halacha Vav. Just one line different. So basically last year we did a sentence, and this year we're going to do a sentence as the kickoff point. So the Rambam. So let me just give a haktama. The shir was advertised as talking about Hilchos Chanifah or Chanufah or Chanifos, which is Chanifos means. Let's give it a Torah definition. People say flattery. It's not really flattery. There's nothing wrong with flattering somebody. People say false flattery. That's more truthful, so to speak. False flattery is when I'm just praising you for nothing, but that's false flattery. So that's not really, that might be called chanifos in Lashon HaKodesh, but that's not really what the halacha is about, false flattery. The halacha is about telling someone that's, we just announced your dedication. Yeah. Telling somebody who's doing something wrong that they're doing something right, that it's okay. That's what chanifos is. And after everything I'm going to say for the next Bezras Hashem till Chatzos Halayla, but when it comes down to, like, if I don't say anything else with this sentence, I just want to understand what it is. Like chanifos means, let me say it one more time. Chanifos means when somebody's doing something wrong, and you say, for whatever agenda you have, and I want to make that very clear, for whatever agenda you have, you say, no, you're good, you're okay. You're a holy Jew. You have a good heart. If it's not an union of halacha, of mitzvahs, it's just an union of being. So the very fact that you whitewash the Metzias Hadvarim, particularly when it comes to Torah, that's called Chanufah in halacha. That's Chanifah in halacha. And it's the reason why my eye got caught by this idea is because I think it's like I'm a rabbi, so like I do this for a living. It's a big mixture, not just for, I think for everybody. And I'll tell you how bad it is. I mean, but also like I think. I'm gonna say it like it is, because if I don't say it like it is, I'll be over chanifos. But I think so much. There's a lot of misguidance from a Torah point of view when it comes to, let's say, kiruv. So a lot of kiruv is telling people how they're really, really good people and good Jews. They might be good people. Nobody's saying they're not good people. But at the moment that you whitewash. Well, Bli Ein Hara, I told them you're setting up way too many chairs. Look at this full Bli Ein Hara. Thank you, everybody, for coming. The minute you whitewash something and say what's bad is good, so what you're doing with that, particularly in Torah, let's stick to Torah for a minute, meaning like if somebody's violating the Torah, you're telling them it's good. What you're really doing there is you're corrupting the Torah. It's not about like you're corrupting the Torah, and also. It could be that a lot of psychological advice that people get in relationships is all chanifas ha'asura. I saw a tshuva, and there's a sefer called Mishnah Halachos, Rabbi Menashe Klein. So the name of the tshuva is Ha'imuter lahachnifas ishtai. Chanifas in your wife. So he has like a lot of studim and say that might be one of the only cases where chanifas is mutter. I'm not sure what the case is exactly. I think I didn't go through the whole thing, but if you'll go and ask an eitzah for in relationships, and I'm very aware of it. I myself. So a lot of the eitzah is to validate. Validating is good. That's a good thing. But if it's validating, kolomar, that you're saying something. Which is bad is good. So that's not good. There's an easy option. That's just be quiet. Like you don't always have to say something. Like it's not always, but particularly, you have to be careful if the purpose here is you're trying to get something out of this. You have some kind of an agenda. I guess the elephant in the room is, let's say, fundraising. So, like, let's say you're fundraising and you're around like somebody who's like very, very wealthy, and so like the minhag is that the minhag is like this. You say 3 times, Rabbi Haya Machabed Ashirim. Say that a few times. So that's one heter. And then you say, I hear the Mishalachim say, Tiskar b'Daniel v'Tatzliach. They say that 3 times, which is interesting. And then it's like pure chanifus. It could be pure chanifus, it's not kavod. I was saying I was once in a place that I'm being a bit harsh on this because once we get into learning, it's a little bit easier. But I just want to point out the Chomer Inyan. In my opinion, Chomer Inyan this really stopped me in my tracks. But I remember years ago I went to a shir at a certain kollel, and there was a big Rosh Kollel asked me to come, and someplace at Yerushalayim, and there was a big ashir, big supporter of the kollel that was invited, and he was giving the shir. So he was like Yodea Sefer. He knew Taf Yomi. I mean, he was a good guy, but nothing like the Talmidei Chachamim that were sitting around him. I mean, we're talking about huge Talmidei Chachamim sitting around him, probably some of the most chashuva people in the world. And they were mechabedim with a shir, and he's giving a shir, and everybody's like, whoa, wow, yeah, helping him a little bit, And I said to the Rosh Kollel afterwards, I said, did he say something? Nah. It was just they're indulging him because, he's a gvir. So why isn't that chanifus, which we're going to learn deraisa? Meaning, it might be, depending on how we define it halachically, might be chanifus. So that's the first thing that I want to introduce you to. And then we're going to take a break and eat some kugel for 10 minutes. And then I want to get to the flip side of chanifus. And the flip side of the chanifus, this I saw Meforsh in the Maral, which is what made me think of it. And then afterwards, Meforsh in Rabbeinu Yoina Shari Tshuva, Kuf Tzadiches, I think, in Shari Tshuva, where he says that the opposite of chanifus is Tochecha. Meaning there's a mitzvah of Hocheach, Tocheach, as Hamisecha. Another thing we're pretty weak in, I think, no? And the reason is because the Gemara says, Rab Tarfon, famous Rab Tarfon, that is a pellet to me, Tomani, I think he says, Tomani, if there's anybody nowadays that even knows how to give Tochecha properly. And that's true, because it's a very, very difficult and complicated mitzvah to do. This does not exempt us from the mitzvah. He's not saying that you shouldn't do the mitzvah. It means tamani, it means you have to learn how to do the mitzvah. So I find, by the way, that people that are like psychologists or therapists that are trained well know how to do the mitzvah Tochecha. If I could train, they went to university, they learned how to do Tochecha. So there's parts, so let's give lessons in Tochecha. I'm not so good at it, my wife tells me. but
she's obviously better.
She's well said, thank you. No, and I mean that. But as soon as I advertised this shir in Chanifah, so I got like all these messages. What a wonderful idea! I look forward to your shiurim. Your shiurim are always so good. So this is another important set of halachos, which is exactly the same thing, just 2 sides of one coin, because is once again, we should look at it deeply. Once again, it's protecting the Messiah of the Torah. If you let something, and here you have it, just right now, like 2 sides of one coin. If you let something go by, which is not supposed to be, and not only that, but you extol it. So on whose cheshbon? It would be like, let's say you see somebody stealing something from somebody else, and you say, that's all right. This is the Rebbeinu Shalom. It's a Kodesh Baruch Hu. So he gave us a Torah, and you see something very, very simple, that Moshe Rabbeinu dedicated a whole sefer of the Torah, and Rashi says, Ela Dvarim, Kulam Divrei Tochecha. And by the way, you can learn a lot from Moshe Rabbeinu's Tochecha. You can learn about how he told them, Bani Matem Lashem Elokeichem, and the Tochecha, and how he told them that you're an Am Kadosh, and there's nobody like you, that Hashem loves you so much. But in the meantime, Rashi says it lists all the different places, every place that we acted in a negative way. Why did he do this? This was Mipi Moshe. Like, make no mistake. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was makabelit, so to speak. I don't know how to say it. There's a Mishnah Berurah about this, about how you're supposed to look at this. The Mishnah Berurah talks about it before. How do you look at Divrei Moshe, as a Divrei Hashem? But whatever, it's Divrei Moshe. Dvar Moshe, Divrei Moshe, maybe Yisrael. And apparently the words were from Moshe Rabbeinu, and it's part of our Torah. But what was his point? He needed to do the mitzvah of Tochecha. Who is the one who can create the Messiah correctly better than Moshe Rabbeinu? Moshe Kibul Torah Misinai, Messiah Yeshua. And if there's any kind of a mistake in the Messiah, this is a mistake forever. And he can't. And Moshe Rabbeinu, even after he said all the mitzvahs, Har Sinai, Aser Sadibra, everything that he did, Oil Moed, throughout Oil Moed, he gave a whole sefer of Tochecha before he died. And this was, here's the point, not like you're supposed to be critical. You're not supposed to be critical. You should never be critical. But, and I leave this to think about for a little while, because I want to address it later if we have time. But like, what do these words even mean? Hocheach, tochiach, v'samisecha. What does it mean? In English it says rebuke, reproof, give musar. What does it mean? We know what lo chiach means. What does lo chiach mean? Yeah, but like chiach. So hocheach, tochiach means what? How would you define it? What do you say, David? When you hear a Talmud Chacham, hocheach, tochiach is obviously. What do you say? Why do you say that? Lehochiach to him. Yes. Yeah, I knew you would have your finger on that. Here's very important. In other words, that's the Rishonim are medayik in the word tochiach. What's the difference between hocheach, tochiach? So like an interesting. The Rishonim talk about it, but I don't want to jump the gun. But what it comes to is lochiach lo, like show somebody that that's not the right thing. Now, you run the risk of offending them. Okay. Okay. I mean, no, I just said somebody's hurting your kid. What do you say? Well, I don't want to offend you, but you're hurting. So you learn how to. This is a choiv kadosh on every single person, especially me, to learn. I'm speaking my heart. I'm not so good at this, but to learn very, very clearly how to do Tochecha. But for sure, as the Shari Tshuva says, he goes in order. He has like 14 things, I think, of different levels of Chanifah. But and I think early on he says that like when you don't give somebody Tochecha, that's a form of Chanifah. Like just not, let him go. That itself is a form of Chanifah. Am I making sense to everybody, or just yeah? So, but the worst type of Chanifah is when you actually do Chanifah. Like, the worst type of Chanifah is not only you don't do, so it's almost like an essay and a lois essay together in a way, even though that's not what it's called, but I'm just saying myself, it's like an essay and a lois essay. So the worst thing you can do is compliment somebody for their avera. Now, I'm putting these questions out for it to roll around in your mind while I'm talking. Okay? But like a lot of times, like we have to do this with our kids because you don't want let them be their own person and all that. But you see, there's what? Are you paying attention? No, I'll tell you though. I'm saying opinions instead of learning Torah, but it also goes too far. It's gone too far. This idea of just accepting everything that evachiv chinuch. That's a pashut. And kids know very well how to take advantage of it also. So can't be criticized. It can't be criticized. Now, nobody's saying to criticize. Criticize is a very negative connotation. But to teach, hocheach tochiach, is a job. It's a job of every parent. It's a job of a Rebbe. That's a job of really every Jew to another Jew if you know how to do it. So, Loisisa alav chet, say the Rishonim in Chazal, name of Chazal, Loisisa alav chet means, but don't be mavayish them barabim, don't be machlim them l'chayr, don't make. I don't know if it includes. We'll learn not to make them feel bad because it could be that's they're supposed to feel bad, but there are limitations as to directions, let's say instructions as to how to do it, but they have to do it. These are two clear chiyuv. If we still have time. After my introduction, if we still have time, so I want to explain a little bit why it's always good to understand why this is so bad. Al pi pnimius HaTorah also. So as we approach Chatzos, if you're still here, I want to understand Al pi pnimius HaTorah, like why is this such a without the pnimius HaTorah, the Pashat Pshat is, and this is the Pashat Pshat, which might not be so Pashat until we all think about this together, is that you're messing up the Masorah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem created us, this world to do something, and now you're telling, no, you don't have to do that. You're doing fine without that. Not so Pashat to do that. Okay, so all this I'm taking from the Rambam. The Rambam says. One simple sentence. It's important diuk. The Rambam's in Hilchos Deis, as I said, Perak Sheni Halacha Vav. So the Rambam says this. I want to read the whole Rambam, including what we learned last year. Asir la'adam lahanig atzmai b'divrei halachos, chalakut, I don't know how to say it, upitui. So this means to me like a smooth talker. A person who's like a shark, like a pitui. Pitui is when you're able to convince somebody to do something which is wrong just by talking in a way that's seduction. That's the right word. So usher. All the Rishonim talk about what Isser is this, but Asr la'adam lahanig atzmai b'divrei halakos upitui v'leitia, and you shouldn't be achas b'peh v'achas b'leiv. And here the Rambam puts a new like a spin on this, because the spin is that you shouldn't be a smooth talker. Why shouldn't you be a smooth talker? Like if I have this kind of charisma and I'm able to sell, real estate and stuff, like why shouldn't I be a smooth talker? So a smooth talker, like to me, implies somebody who's, or certainly if you're being seductive about it, but it could imply like a business problem or worse, but you're not allowed to do that. But the Rambam says, like the problem with it is you're achas bepeh, achas b'leiv, right? You ever think about that? Like in other words, the problem with it is you don't really mean what you're saying. This is a great house for you, and I'm thinking to myself, well, stupid if he buys this house. Like what kind of person? So this is a particular nisayon for people that are in any kind of sales or business, but also in all relationships. So you can't be achas b'heva achas b'leiv, ella tochecha kevari. Rather, you should be tochecha kevari. Your inside should be the same as your outside. Transparency is such that, what I mean is what I say, and what I say is what I mean. Now, just to make it clear, obviously this doesn't mean that if you see like a person in the street, you have to go over to him and say, "Well, you are really ugly," because tochecha kevari. It's the other way around. When I'm saying something, you have to mean what you're saying. Don't say it if it's. So this is a new madrega of immerse. Is this different than the Isser of Geneva Stas that we talked about last year? So how do you see the difference? Do you see a difference in that and Geneva Stas? So the Rambam says, let's just say, let's learn it like briskers for a minute. Then the Rambam says, "Va'aser lignoiv das habrius afilu das hagoy." And you're not allowed to do Geneva Stas. It's a different Isser. It starts with Asr again. So from here, already all the Mepharshei Rambam are medayik, and it's clear actually that when you think about it, that there's a number of different things. There's the whole idea of sheker, and then sheker has its just to be dishonest, but then that has a lot of different sifkatins, and simonim and sifim. There's a lot of different parts to doing sheker. Geneva is also sheker. Mazik could also be sheker. A lot of things are sheker, but that there's one thing called Geneva Das, which we spent a long time on last year. So Geneva Das is I'm making you think something which isn't. That's the Geneva Das. I think Gemara's example is that if I sell you what?
A watch that's fake.
That's not what the Gemara says. The Gemara says if I sell you shoes and I tell you that they're made out of basar shchuta or shchuta, and they're really made out of or nevela, so it makes no difference at all. Like I'm sure none of us are wearing shoes from or shchuta. As a genuine cowhide means that some killed the cow, so it's all nevela. But why'd you say that? And could be like somebody who's a collector. A lot of people collect shoes, by the way. So people that are somebody who's like fussy about everything, like this kind of wood, this kind of tile, this kind of shoes. So like he wants it to be basar shchuta, like he thinks that's like another is the animal. Or I'll give you another example. This comes to mind. Let's say you're just you don't want animals to suffer. So we know that animals that are shechted have less suffering than animals that are killed other ways, slaughtered in other ways. So I want my shoes to be basar shchuta, let's say. So there's a difference in a person's mind. But it doesn't make any difference. The point is you can't tell somebody that something is coming from a shchuta when it's coming from, that's Genevas Das. And what we need to learn is this is different, but it's clearly two different things. So there's one thing is, let's call it, as all the other Rishonim call it. Interesting, the Rambam does not say the word Chanifah. I'm saying that, Chanifah. But this, every makar of the Rambam is talking about Chanifus, which is interesting as I defined it. So what we have here is Asir Adam Lahanig Asmei B'divrei Halachos. How do you want to say that? Anybody know dictaquo? Since Rav Kamenetsky spoke, I'm like very, I'm afraid to talk now. What? No, how do you pronounce it? I'm not as good. And I'm not sure. I know that's what they say, but
How about the
chalak. Yeah.
what the Nachash said to Chava? Which heading does that come under?
Nachon, pitui.
Does Lahanig
Pitui. That's a classic example of pitui. Yetzer Hara also works with pitui. The Gemara talks a lot. So from the Yetzer Hara you can learn how not to be.
Does Lahanig mean like a specific action or
That's your culture.
like a whole way of living?
Yeah, it is. And it is a whole way of living. It is I tell you more, I want to say this one more time. More than being a whole way of living or a bad habit, it's considered like a good tool.
Listen.
Good tool. like he knows how to talk to people. And it's pretty scary to me. And he says again, what's ever going on in your heart, hu hadavar shebepeh. And I'm emphasizing this because I want to get to speaking about it al pi machshava. When I say al pi machshava, it's basically what I learned in Reb Tzadok and what I heard from Rav Moshe Shapiro. Those are my two, and when I was a kid learning Tanya. Those are my three sources of this type of thing. But I think this is echad bepeh, echad belev, is a sugya in Kabbalah, which is something we all need to understand. Chanifus. So Chanifus, Klorin Chazal, the Torah says in Sefer Bamidbar, L'sachnifus haaretz, I have it here, source 2, Asher atem ba. Let's talk about Eretz Yisrael. Come to Eretz Yisrael, and we live in Eretz Yisrael. L'sachnifu es haaretz. What could that even mean? What's the Pashat Pshat? L'sachnifu es haaretz asher atem ba, ki adam hu yachnif es haaretz. What a pasuk. Mysterious pasuk. Isn't it? Lo yisachnifu es haaretz. Okay, who's going to take this on? Go ahead, Reb Chaim. David, we need you. Very good. Okay, Reb Chaim, since you said something. Lo yisachnifu es haaretz.
Talking about if a person is no justice, and if the murderer is not his blood is not.
So lo yisachnifu es haaretz asher atem ba. Talking about Eretz Yisrael. Ki adam hu yachnif es haaretz. Because the proper translation of Yachnif in this pasuk is don't pollute Eretz Yisrael. Why do I say that's a proper translation? Because that's what Rabbi Yaacov said. Don't pollute. When the land, like land of Eretz Yisrael in particular, is affected by everything we do, and when there's not tzedek, so the land reeks with bilti tzedek. Eretz Yisrael is miyuchad as a place that it really reacts to its inhabitants. I'll give you a raya to this that like Chazal say, when we're here, the Jews are here, the desert is blooming. And when we're not here, it's Eretz Shemema. And everybody sees this. I mean, it's one of those things people don't want to see, but it's such a clear nest. One of the biggest nisim of Eretz Yisrael. How like whatever you plant, even if I plant it, it just grows. Everything is.
Today in Beit El, the lady showed us how the tree line stops the second Arab start.
Wow.
The tree line
Shabbat Devar.
it stops. Craziest thing.
And even if we water it, it doesn't work. There's a bracha. So like what it means to say is lo yisachnifu es haaretz. One of the things that Chazal darshan in this in Sifri is you're not allowed to do, and this is very interesting. You're not allowed to give back. You're not allowed to land for peace, because it's not. It's. First of all, we just read on Shabbos. Right? They can't make a peace treaty unless everybody decides that they believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu and they love Jews. That's the only time you could do it. And then, by the way, like I just was learning this in Sefer Yecheskel, if they do that, Yecheskel, I was going over the borders of Israel, fascinating. Yecheskel's borders of Israel in the Bayis Shlishi. So he talks about how it goes to Sedan, which is eastern Lebanon, and to Beiruta, Yecheskel's words. Beiruta, Beis, Reish, Vav, Tav, Hey. You ever see that? Beiruta until Damascus. So I said the Malbim explains it's a Kav Yasher from Beirut to Damascus. Damascus is not exactly Damascus. It's a region. So that's the clear what will be the border of Eretz Yisrael. So yeah, so they keep on saying, we don't want your land. We do want, yeah. Yeah. I mean, why? Well, I mean, that's why not? Like that's where we're supposed to be.
That chicken from Turkey can be fine.
No, I think part of Turkey also is because it goes until the Euphrates on Nahar Paras. So we got a piece of that too. That's why they're all. That's why they're also. They figure, okay, we're messianic and we want this land back. So that's why you're not allowed to be messianic. But no. But anyway, so what I'm leisachnifu es haaretz, according to one shot in Chazal, is it's a kind of a chanifus to the Yumas Ha'olam. Chanifus to the Olam. Yeah, it's your Eretz Yisrael. Take Eretz Yisrael. What are you giving away? So it should not be called land for peace. It should be called land so that you don't kill us. I mean, somebody come up with a good marketing term, but it's not about peace. Peace, it's not peace. We have peace with people that are killing us. One minute we have peace, and what's the what you can have though is a ceasefire. Okay, ceasefire. I mean, that's a strategic idea of a ceasefire. Works, doesn't work. Everybody has their opinions, but peace, like so. But that giving that kind of a false giving Eretz Yisrael for the sake of peace is called Chanifus in Chazal. Sifrei. It's called Chanifus in Chazal. Second thing Chazal say, and here you have it, Lo Sachnifa Aretz, Harei Azhara Lechanifim. Chanifa Kipshutai. Also Lahachne Lischanef Lirishayim. Kvish Lamdu Chazal Min Apasek V'Lo Sachnifu Es Haaretz. Chazal say that. Sifrei. Mashmois HaMitzvah, this is a part of this, he quotes from a different Chazal. Mashmois HaMitzvah, Sha'atayra Madricha Isanu Shaloi Lahaskim Im Metzias Haresha Ba'olam. Yeah, we can't as Jews, this is a lashon of the Sefer HaChinuch, but they bring it from a Chazal. We can't as Jews condone any type of evil. Yes, so the minute we're condoning any kind of Resha, so then we're not just violating the Messiah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but we're violating the whole purpose of our existence. Because the whole purpose of our existence is to teach the world that there shouldn't be full of pollution and evil and corruption. Kishe'efshar haresha, that's not a Russia, haresha ba'olam. Kishe'efshar, and when it's possible, nitztavinu lo heichiach es hachaita. And here you see again, the Sefer HaChinuch it comes from, he makes also, just like the Shari Tshuva said, and just like the Shari Tshuva said, and the Maral says, Klor, we're going to learn that Maral, that the opposite of Chanifus is Tochecha. Like if you want the only way, like you're for sure not doing Chanifus is if you're Tochecha Hamisecha. But if you can't do the Tochecha, don't do the Chanifus. So here you have again in Chazal clear opposites. That Chanifus is the opposite of Tochecha, and Tochecha is the opposite of Chanifus. Is a very important thing. Okay, so now let's learn. That's the Hakdama. And here comes this very fascinating Mishnah, which we all know because it's in Yana Diyoma. Actually, it's done. Easier. So the Mishnah says like this. Mishnah talks about, in the 7th parak of Saita, the Mishnah talks about Parashas HaMelech. So we know that there's a Hakel, right? Hakel is at the end of Shmini Atzeres, at the end of Shemitah, we go to the base of Mikdash, and the number of things happen at Hakel, but the main thing that happens, everybody comes together. Noshim, Va'ataf, it's a huge gathering of Hakel, and the Melech gets up, Melech Yisrael gets up, and he says, Parashas HaMelech. Let me just quiz you for a moment. Who was the last Melech of Klal Yisrael in Eretz Yisrael? You should know this. Tzidkiyahu, which was in the Bayis Rishon. Tzidkiyahu, not the that's our Tisha B'Av talk. Is the last kings of Israel. But here's the Mishnah. Parashas HaMelech Ketzad. How do you do the part of Parashas HaMelech? Motzei Yontiv Harishon Shel Chag. On the Motzei Yontiv Harishon Shel Chag, Bashmini b'Motzei Shvius. Oisen Loi Yontiv Harishon means Sukkot. Yeah, I mean Yontiv Harishon doesn't mean the first days of Sukkot. Yontiv Harishon Sukkot as opposed to Pesach. So Oisen Loi Bima Shel Eitz Ba'Azara. We make a big bima, a wooden stage in the Azara. V'hu Yoshev Aleh. Who sits on it? The king.
The new one is allowed to sit.
Huh?
He's the only person who's allowed to sit.
He's the only one who's allowed to sit. So the king, Tzidkiyahu, Shlomo HaMelech, sat on there. Shenamar Miketz Sheva Shanim B'Moyed Shnas HaShmita B'Chag HaSukkos. Chazan HaKnesses, and this is what happened. Chazan HaKnesses Noitel Sefer Torah. Chazan HaKnesses like the Gabbai. So he takes the Sefer Torah. B'Noisnei LaRosh HaKnesses gives it to the president. There's a tekes. Gives it to the president. Rosh HaKnesses, Noisnei L'Skan, gives it, let's say, to the vice president or the prime minister. V'Haskan, I mean, all this can be imagined today, like exactly this happening. V'Haskan, the Skan, Noisnei L'Kohen Gadol. He gives it to the Kohen Gadol. Kohen Gadol, so what are they doing here? They're passing around the Sefer Torah. Beautiful thing, passing around the Sefer Torah. But Kohen Gadol, Nois Noila Melech. And the final, in the chain, gives it to the king of Israel. HaMelech Omed, the Melech stands, Umekabel, and he takes the Sefer Torah. This is hundreds of thousands of people watching this happen. Omed Umekabel, he stands as he's Mekabel it, V'yoshev V'koreh. And he sits when he reads the Torah. And he reads the Torah also. He's a Balkaira. In Yiddish, there's an expression, mer steht und mer redt, mer sitzt und mer lernt. Like when you speak, you should stand up. And when you're learning, you sit down. So that's why I say some shiurim you stand, some shiurim you sit. Steht und mer redt, mer sitzt und mer lernt. So he sat down when he was reading the Torah, presumably teaching the Torah. As the Bishop tells us, Agrippas HaMelech. Now, when was Agrippas HaMelech? I just want to point this out. Not just the Bayis Sheni. He saw the Chorban Bayis Sheni. It was the very end of the. There's two Agrippas HaMelech, and he was a Roman. Agrippas HaMelech was a grandson of Hordus. He was a grandson of Hordus, and he was a guy. So Agrippas HaMelech, but he muscled himself into becoming the king of Israel. But he was really the Melech Mitam. Like he wasn't, but he was a benevolent guy, dictator, but a benevolent dictator, and everybody liked him, and he paid for a lot of things, and he did like the streets and everything. Everything was nice in Yerushalayim. So okay, Melech Yisrael, Agrippas Melech Yisrael instead of David Melech Yisrael. Okay, it was not from Shevet Yehuda. He wasn't out of Ben David. Already the Chashmonaim were wrong, but they were at least Malchei Chashmonai. They were Jewish, but Agrippas HaMelech wasn't Jewish, but he was Miskabel. So Agrippas HaMelech, they're doing this whole Hakel thing at the end of the Tkufa of the Bayis Sheni. It's just important we understand this. Oimed, Ahmad, he stood up. V'kibel v'kara Oimed. This is very interesting. He stood up. He was Makabel the Torah, and he continued to stand out of respect as he read the Torah. V'shibchu chacham el chacham. So that's very nice. It's very nice that he's standing up the whole time. Now, the Gemara and later there's a lot of discussion. Why did he? What was his thinking? But the Pashat Pshat in his thinking was it was covered for all the Chachamim and Kohen Gadol and everything that was around him. Like he was humble. In that way, he was humble. Apparently, here's another raya that he was somewhat of a mensch. Ukishigia. Then he's reading the Torah in Devarim. He comes to the part of the Torah, he's reading this out loud, standing up. And he starts to read that you're not allowed to make a king who's not your brother. Like, Zolgu Einav Demois, and his eyes filled up with tears. He started to cry. So a sensitive person, I guess, however you want to understand it historically. But this was a famous mamad. This was a famous thing that happened, that Agrippas HaMelech, first of all, that they did Hakel, and that they had him as the Melech Yisrael, and that he went up on the stage. Like you said, Joel, nobody's allowed to go up on that stage, and maybe that's why he didn't sit down. But nobody's allowed to go up on that stage, and he's reading the Torah like he's Melech Yisrael. It's a Chagai. And the Zolgu Ein of Demais. So all the Chachamim and Tzadikim were all around him, and they watched him break out into tears. Amrulai, so they said to him, Laiti Siare Agrippas HaMelech, don't worry about it. Achinu ata, we consider you a brother. Wow. Heza. Said it twice. Achinu ata, achinu ata. That's what the Mishnah says. Now, it's interesting that this is in the Mishnah, but it's a story. It's a story about Agrippas HaMelech. Says the Gemara, Tana Mishum Rabbi Nassan. And by the way, in the Yerushalmi, which always has more stuff about Eretz Yisrael, so there's not just Rabbi Nassan, it has Rabbi Nassan, and it has a whole list. But Tana Bishmei Mishum Rabbi Nassan, Ba'oisach Shah, at that moment, Nischayvu Soneim Shel Yisrael Kloya. Which simple pshat is that's exactly when the Chorban Beis HaMikdash was decreed. See, you all thought it was because of Sinas Chinam. It's Chanifus. Because one leads to the other. Mipnei shechinfu loyla Agrippas HaMelech. They did a Chanifus to Agrippas HaMelech. In the Yerushalmi it says, is it Lashon? Kama chalolim naflu ba'oisai yaim. It means in whatever battles that we had, Jewish soldiers died. The moment of Chanifah, of Agrippas HaMelech, soldiers died. Now, just before we go any further, what should they have done?
Get silence.
What? Yeah. Maybe at such a moment you have Amos HaMalchus. Maybe you even have Yiras HaMalchus.
But is Chanifah allowed during Amos HaMalchus?
That's it, that's what I was going to say.
Chanifah is a lav. A lav, you don't do when it's pikuach nefesh, meaning you don't have to worry about it when it's pikuach nefesh, except for three things, right? If it's not pikuach nefesh, you're going to lose money, you're going to get hurt, you're not allowed to be over on a lav.
What exactly is the Chanifah here?
Am I right about that? Everybody got that right, by the way? Like you're allowed to eat treif, that's pikuach nefesh. Not because you're in pain. You're not allowed to eat treif. And by the way, there's a lot of Chanifahs around this also. It's okay.
What exactly is the Chanifahs here? That he was doing an Aveira and they said it's okay?
He was doing something wrong. He himself chapped. I don't know. I'm analyzing, but he himself understood that he's doing something which is not kosher. Zolgu einav demais, and from here, by the way, you see this. He was acting like a melech, and he's not supposed to be a melech.
He was reading the pasuk that said you're non-Jew.
Doing hakel and standing up there, he's a fraud.
So wouldn't the Yidden, they're so afraid for their lives, they're willing to be...
Who said he was killing people? He wasn't killing anybody.
No, but you have Herod, who was only a few years before.
Hortus was killing people, and you had Hadrian after him that was killing people.
They had good reason.
He didn't kill anybody. But okay, but then my raya is from the Gemara. Then it wouldn't be Chanifus.
By a guy?
What?
You're saying that din Chanifus is by a guy?
So it says. In the Mishnah.
That's a fellow.
Yeah, but it's a Mishnah. Agrippas was a guy. I mean, first of all, was he a guy? So that's the whole Gemara. That's the whole Mishnah. There's no, and you see.
Is the Chanifus to a guy.
Yeah, well, look at. You're pointing out good, but let's look at the Hemshech. What?
So you should have kept
Could have
quiet.
kept quiet. The Chol HaPachas, keep quiet or leave. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Seder.
It's not about a Jew or a guy, it's about perverting the Torah.
That's right.
The lav is
That's
on the
very
table.
right. Thank you. That's very well said.
The lav
What's
is
the
on
difference? What's the difference? You were good. The point is, they had just, according to my original translation, they have just perverted and corrupted the Torah.
But it's not.
The Torah says, like, you're not allowed to put anybody up there unless it's up there, right there on that stage, unless it's careful.
So this is not, the Achina is not the problem. The problem is allowing the whole ceremony to begin with.
Uh-huh.
Not the.
You could do the ceremony without a melech,
Right.
and there was no melechs then.
Right, there was not allowed to do the ceremony.
No, but I'm saying since the Bayis Rishon, since the B'chas Noim, let's say there was no melech anyway. I mean, so,
Right, so it wasn't the.
yeah. So the whole thing was
The whole thing.
was a shtick Chanifus, yeah.
was
Yeah, but it's a wild story. It's brought in the Mishnah. It's a wild story, and comes Reb Nosson says that was the moment where God decided that we don't belong in Eretz Yisrael, Galus. Klaya, the Ritva says it means the Chorban Beis HaMikdash. The Rashba says it means Galus. Others say it means everything. Rashi. It means that, and then the Yerushalmi says that we like people started dropping in the battlefield. There were battles going on at that time.
So why is it brought down that Sinas Hinam was one of the causes?
It was a Makah B'Patish. In other words, I think it's a very good question. I think. No, hesitant to say it's a very good question. It's a good question. No, I think that the Sinas Chinam, like the political situation, and the division that was going on in the time of Churban Beis Hamikdash, that was like Kamsa Bar Kamsa and that kind of stuff. That finished off the Beis Hamikdash. But like it starts when you're protecting yourself over protecting the Messiah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and protecting the Dvar Hashem, and protecting the Torah. And if we were doing that, instead of thinking about our own egos, there would not be any sinas chinam. What is sinas chinam? Sinas chinam is this is hurting me. This is causing me, my ego to hurt. So let's say we would all know how to just get rid of that problem, which is basically kol Torah kula, telling you how to understand what our tachlis in this world is, and it's not to get kavod. That's not the purpose of the whole thing.
Question?
Yeah.
When you're dealing with Hanifas and you're dealing with Tochecha, with rebuke, isn't there a concept that you can't rebuke somebody who's in a error if they're not going to accept it? This must be a fine line here somewhere.
No. There are cases, and I'm gonna skip ahead because you asked me a very important question. There are cases, because we're not holding it by Tochecha.
Can you repeat the question?
The question is, is there times you shouldn't do Tochecha? Can you make the situation worse? Which we're not up to Tochecha.
But that's not the same.
The answer is, if somebody is a shogeg, and you're going to turn them into a mazid. So that is a case where you shouldn't do Tochecha because you're making it worse. Taking a shogeg, now I'm a shogeg, and then I'm going to be a mazid. However, that is also, we got carried away with that one. Because, first of all, how do you know that the person's not going to listen? And that's a big chet, to just assume that a person's not going to listen.
Isn't there also an exclusion for...
Moshe Rabbeinu got in a lot of trouble for that. Yeah, when I was a kid, I learned in Lubavitch. And then when my oldest son was very little, so we were in Crown Heights by an uncle. And Lubavitch Rebbe was, when I was a kid, you went to Yechidus and you spoke with him, but at that time he was already holding by the dollars, or giving out some cake. I think it's Sukkot. It was getting stuff for Sukkot. So, and I lived in Buffalo, New York. So the Rebbe said, this conversation that I'm describing now took 30 seconds or less. But somehow he said, I'm from Buffalo. And it was, what do you do? And I said, Kiruv Rechoikim. And he said, don't call them Rechoikim, you don't know that.
What language did he say that in?
Yiddish. You don't know that. It's a big judgment to say that this one is far and you're close. So the emissaries, like from that point on, not only I didn't say Kiruv Rechoikim, I didn't say Kiruv at all. But the big trick is in Kiruv, you bring people to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but to give a person this kind of a din that they're not going to listen, first of all. Second of all, there's a sefer here. It's very interesting. I just was looking through my own library because I moved, called Avosos Ava, Kiruv Rechoikim Ba'alacha. And it's all about Hilchos Kiruv Rechoikim. Kiruv Rechoikim. Wasn't written by Lubavitch, right? Kiruv Rechoikim Ba'alacha. So he, over here, a lot of the whole thing of Kiruv, like why should we even do that? So the answer is, like why else should you bother with somebody who don't want to keep Shabbos, don't keep Shabbos? So the answer is, so now the question is, should you tell somebody about halachos when you know he's not going to keep them?
So Agrippas would fall into this...
Well, he was crying. He was crying. He was upset. I should have said, you're right. You're not really a melech. What would you have said?
The problem of the building campaign.
Sorry about that.
I know what Rabbi Yaacov would say.
No, but giving the benefit of the doubt could apply to a Jew, but why would you give the benefit of the doubt to a
Isn't there
Goy?
an exception for a law that's specifically mentioned?
The point is, it's not about benefit of doubt. It's about their corrupting Hashem's words. Here he's reading a pasuk, and he's violating the pasuk while he's reading it, and we're saying, what do they say? You're Jewish. Basically, when you say somebody's my brother, you're my brother. You say they're Jewish. That's what they're saying. That was what I started off with. Wasn't even. That's right. He wasn't really a melech anyway. But you have to be a ben David. So what are they putting them up there all together?
That's what I didn't say.
Yeah.
That's what I didn't say.
Yeah.
The problem wasn't so much the group, it was the people that were elevating it.
Yeah, who let him on the stage in the first place?
Right. There's a lot of very good questions. I'm
Also true. Yeah, good point.
I'm not finding the thing that was very interesting. I just opened it up, and he talks about he's talking about here. I don't know who this is. He's talking about this idea of doing. It has a haskama from Rav Chaim Pinchas Scheinberg, who's my Rebbe, but he's talking about doing Tochecha with somebody who's not going to listen, meaning somebody who's not from. I'd love to see this inside. So he says, are you allowed to tell somebody who's not religious about, let's say, Shabbos, because then you're taking a shogeg and turning into a mazid. So he quotes here, huh?
The concept of edus is that they have to give a straw to the person who's about ready to do the aveir. Say, don't do this hill of Shabbos or you're going to get skila.
Are you talking to someone who understands?
So therefore what?
But I'm just saying, but there's an obligation of people who are watching something
To say.
to say it.
In other words, where are those guys coming from? They're doing a mitzvah.
Right, but that's our achayis.
I don't.
Watching an aveir.
Does it say anywhere that you have to do hasra?
Yeah, you have to. Without hasra, there's nothing.
No, without hasra you can't do a din. But does it say you have to give hasra? So the answer is Tochecha,
Right,
or loy samoid al dam reyecha. Another thing.
Is Hasra and Tochecha the same thing?
Yeah. Hasra has to contain in it a warning. If you do this, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to get an einish. Anyways, all I want to say with this is that he quotes here, which I happen to open up, and I'm not happening to open it up again. I'll find it in a minute. But he quotes here a very beautiful Rabbi Yaacov Haber, and he says, we asked Rav Scheinberg, so it was interesting, asked Rav Scheinberg, then I noticed it's all the way through. He asked Rav Scheinberg, if you tell somebody who's not religious about Shabbos, are you taking a shogeg and turning it into a mazid? There's so many klolim with that. Doesn't apply to a deraisa, doesn't apply, there's all kinds of klolim. But he said that, why do you think, this is what he answered, why do you think just because you told them they're not a shogeg anymore? Like, what do you think, you gave them a whole education here? You tell a guy, you're supposed to keep Shabbos. All of a sudden he's not a shogeg?
No, maybe the guy doesn't understand.
No, but the Chazon Ish says that everybody's a Tzaddik Shadishba. Why? Because nobody knows how to give Tochecha, and what's our educational system anyway? So what do you think? Because you told a guy, you really shouldn't be doing that, all of a sudden he's a mason? No, he's not a mason. Same shogeg as you were. Just thinks you're a pain in the neck. That's all. Is that a?
Yeah,
so
but then he's enlightened.
Yeah, but yes, but I digress. I just want to answer your question, that it's not so simple to use that heter, and it too often, I think, in life and in Judaism particularly, we say, well, we're not going to, it's kind of I think most of us are Americans. It's a very American thing of just don't get involved. So if you see people if you're sitting on a subway and you see somebody robbing somebody else, so the minhag America is you take a newspaper and whatever, when they had newspapers. Yeah, you're not going to go get involved. But even amisecha there, that mitzvah is by a Jew. But Chanifah is even by a goy, so you got to know what you're doing. And by the way, Samisecha applies to goyim also. I'm going to go further in the Gemara. The Gemara says, it's a fascinating Gemara, and as much as we're able to, I want to try to explain most of it. Amar of Shimon ben Chalafta, and this is like a new memra, nothing to do with agrifas. Miyom shegavra agrifa shel chanufa. Nisavu hadinim niskalkul hamaisim ve'ein adam yachol leimer lechavere maisai gedolim mimaasecha. So the Gemara says that from the day that there was a gevura, meaning the culture became a culture of agrofa. So what does agrofa mean? Fist. So what the Rishonim says, it means a culture of chanifos. That's what the sugya. This is the sugya of chanifos. It's a sugya of chanifos. So it means to say agrofa. So Barsha says, what does fist have to do with chanifos? So he says it doesn't. The word agrofa, says the Marsha, was taken since the story of Agrippas. Valdik. In other words, the whole idea is named after Agrippas. And it became a culture. The culture was that this is how you get things done. This is how you get things done. This is how you appease. This is how you use your charisma. This is how you accomplish things. This is how you do with false flattery and telling somebody they're doing okay when they're not doing okay. So, Miyom, says the Gemara, Amar Rab Shimon ben Chalafta, Miyom shegavra agrofa shel chanufa, nisavu hadinim, nisafsu hadinim, everything became corrupt. Everything became corrupt. Niskalkul ha'maisim. Why did everything become corrupt? Because, of course, it's going to become corrupt. If everything that anybody does, even if it's bad, you say it's good, so there you have corruption. Everything is corrupt. Also, you've lost every role model. Because a role model, in order to be able to properly give Tochecha, you have to be able to have that in yourself. You have to be an example of that. Like, you're not going to go tell somebody, stop being Machal Shabbos if you're a Machal Shabbos. You're not going to tell somebody to stop talking Lashon Hara if you're a Baal Lashon Hara. So, but from the moment that anybody says anything they want to say, so nobody, you think you're not, like somebody told you that's all, everybody's just as bad as everybody else. So there's total corruption. And that's why it ultimately led to the, so this fascinated me, this Marsha, Yom Shegavra Agropa Shalom Chanufa, that this story, and that's why it's in the Mishnah, this story of Agrippas HaMelech, and the Chachamim saying, Achinu, that created a culture of Agropa, of a new word, Agropa, new word. The Gemara is a long sugya, I just want to cut to the chase over here. And this is what's fascinating. Amar Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar here, in this Gemara, he said, what did I mark? 5 things? 6 things.
All this chanufah is talking about general chanufah, or only if you're telling someone that he's doing a
Let's stick to Torah. Now, Rabbi Elazar, that means Rabbi Elazar ben Pedas. Rabbi Elazar ben Pedas, our history, lived in Eretz Yisrael at the time of Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish in Tiberia, but he was from Bavel. He was Alami Bavel. He was one of those Talmidim that came from Bavel, and he was one of those Talmidim that came to came to Eretz Yisrael from Bavel, and the Rabbi Yochanan, there's not Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, much later. Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish, Rabbi Yochanan. And Rabbi Yochanan would tell them, you forget everything that you learned in Bavel and start fresh. He did not like the Chutz La'aretz Torah. This is a subject unto itself that I'm afraid to say a little bit of it, because you'll think that I'm like some kind of one of these scholars that don't have respect. You know how much respect I have for Chazal. But and Rabbi Yochanan held that people that learned in Bavel were way too pilpulistic, and they weren't thinking straight, and they didn't know enough Torah. Like everything was a lumdus, but they didn't know enough Torah, and he didn't like it. Rabbi Yochanan didn't like it. Reish Lakish was his bar plukta, because Reish Lakish was by nature a very big Baal Kishrin, and so was Rabbi Yochanan, but I think Reish Lakish was a big gon, and he was always telling him, like, stop at the Kal V'chomers, or that's what he's telling. But this Rabbi Elazar, I'll just give you this background for a reason. So this Rabbi Elazar ben Padas, so he said 6 things. Kol adam sheyesh by chanupa, mevi af la'olam, we want to translate that as he brings anger into the world, I guess, from Hashem, but we have to translate it better. Shenemar v'chanfei lev yasimu off. Let me just go here because I cut out the psukim. Second thing is he says, Amar Rabbi Lazar, Kol Adam sheyesh bei chanupa afilu ubarim shebemei iman mekalkol and Isai. Like what? Ubarim shebemei iman. In other words, in utero children, babies, the unborn babies, ubarim shebemei imai. They're cursing this guy who's doing chanifas. I have a kesher. But it's fair, right? It's a puzzle. The Amar Rabbi Lazar, the third thing that Rabbi Lazar ben Patas said, Kol Adam sheyesh by chanufa neufel begehenim. That's easy.
What's the lesson sheyesh by?
The same thing you asked before, like a culture, right? This is not talking about somebody. I don't think. I'm guessing. It's not talking about somebody who one time did chanifa. That's bad. That's a lav. But sheyesh by chanufa is when it becomes like that's a way of life. Yeah. Amar Rabbi Lazar kol machnif lechaverei soif neufel biyadai. You're going to end up, if you're machnif somebody, you will end up his victim. V'meinu neufel biyadai, neufel biyad banav. V'meinu neufel biyad banav, neufel biyad ben benoi. Wow. Amar Rabbi Lazar. Now you got to be careful because all of this chanufa, yesh by chanufa, if I had to put it all in one word, it would be politics. Amar Rabbi Lazar kol eda sheyesh by chanufa. Now you have a whole kehillah has eda sheyesh by chanufa. Ma'usa kenida. It's disgusting. Nida, not that a nida is disgusting, but it means like people push it away. Shenamar ki adas chanef galmuch kein bekrachi ayam currently nida galmuda. The Amar Rabbi Lazar, the sixth thing he says, kol eda sheyesh by chanufa l'soif goyla. He's gonna that eda will end up going in Golos. Leisachnifu as Aretz, meaning there's no way you can stay here in Eretz Yisrael if your existence in Eretz Yisrael is based on Chanifus. It doesn't work in Eretz Yisrael, the Besaki Aretz Eisam. It doesn't work. So, yeah.
I'm wondering if this Chanifah that they're talking about, especially Agrippas, and they say Achinu Laka, I mean, he was Roman, so he's Esau.
Yes. And Yaakov about.
Right, they say, you're really our brother, So they're not distinguishing between Goyim and Yid.
So first of all, it could be it wasn't a sheker, in that sense, and that's why the Gemara is not getting them on sheker; it's getting them on chanifus. So if it was sheker, it would have said like, how do you say something like that? That's a sheker. Look at this Targum Sheni that I found.
I was just going to say that. There could be the relation with Spino is loving the goy is the same as hating the Jew.
Sinas chinam.
They love this goy.
Yeah.
And they say you're our brother. And so those two things are perhaps related.
Yeah. If you're our brother, or they could say like, you're our brother, so we hate you. See, that's chinam.
That's consistent with Eretz Yisrael throwing us out.
Yes. No, well said. And Yaakov bowed down to Esav. So Yaakov bowed down to Esav. So the Gemara says, Gemara has a question, how is he allowed to do that? So the Gemara says it was pikuach nefesh. It's pikuach nefesh. Huh?
He seemed to be very
Adoni Esav. Panecha kifnei Elohim. But this is Targum Sheni B'shtachavois Yaakov lifnei Esav. During that time, right, Vayishlach, Binyamin lo haya noilad. So Binyamin was yet to be born. Umiyamav lo yishtachav lifnei Esav. So Binyamin was the only one that never bowed down to Esav. Al zois tzur elamim shamar oisei b'mei imai ad asher yala banav l'Eretz Yisrael. He came to Eretz Yisrael. V'yivna beis hamikdash bechelka, and that's why the beis hamikdash is born in Binyamin's chelik. V'yishchein shchinasei begvulai, and that's why the Shechina can be shari on Chelek Binyamin, v'chol Beis Yisrael yismechu sham, and everybody could have simcha there. V'chol goya aretz kairim mishtachvim la'artzei. Think about this, and that's why the respect. Kol goya haaretz kairim mishtachvim la'artzei. That's where the Targum is, that Mordechai wouldn't bow down to Haman, but yet Yaakov bowed down to Esav. He was criticized, Mordechai, for not bowing down to, but he was Ishimini. He was a Binyaminite.
Because with Mordechai, potentially the whole Klal Yisrael could have been wiped out.
That's right. And Sanhedrin had a hard time with him, like he's a kanoi, but he wasn't going to bow down to Haman. So and at the end, history judged him all. No? I mean, it could have been, but yeah.
So Yaakov had a heter for Hilchos Nefesh, but if you don't use a heter, is that being over, putting your life in danger, or is it?
I don't. So there's like a sugya. There's a sugya that we talked about as to whether, if there's a heter, if it's a chiyuv. But this is a different sugya. I'll tell you what I mean, because here what we're saying is that even with a heter, you're not going to have the Beis HaMikdash built in your land. In other words, you can have a heter. You can say, I had a heter, and the heter is a good heter. It could be even chayiv to do the heter, but lo matim to have the Beis HaMikdash built in the Shechina Bishari on a place where there was what the Gemara calls here in Sotah Mem Aleph chanifus.
It could be by Mordechai that Haman was just nothing until Haman came to the king. So he didn't feel like he was not banned against Hachashverosh. It was like there was no end of Pikuach Nefesh, maybe.
It wasn't. I don't know. For him personally, it wasn't Pikuach Nefesh. But I want to just say this. I would imagine that when the Jews were in Shushan, in Iran, I would imagine that the regular derech would be like just humor them. It's not gonna like don't just humor them and don't stand out. And if they want you to do a little bit, they're letting us live. We just got over the Golos Bavel. We didn't get over the Golos Bavel. We're in the middle of Golos Bavel. Here we are in Persia, and they're being invited to big government parties and things like that. So like just shh. But Mordechai so he took a derech. I don't know. It's like if you think about it, like he took he didn't take the default derech. The default derech is like a gullus Jew. The default derech, and it's very understandable, is just like go to the Suda and do your chanifas for Achashverosh and for Haman, and that would not have worked out for us. At the end, that never works out for us. But I was just saying today, the story of I don't want to get anybody offend anybody, but it's the nature of the shir, especially not Yud Hirsch. But Chutz La'aretz is getting dangerous, and Eretz Yisrael is also dangerous. But Eretz Yisrael is the word Eretz Yisrael. We see that Hashem is. But I have to ask myself, how many times in history do we have to go through this until it penetrates? When you start seeing graffiti on walls and riots who was just talking about Rav Yosef Kamenetsky, his grandfather, Rav Yaacov Kamenetsky, who knew perfect German, read Mein Kampf in the original German. It wasn't translated by Art Scroll at that point, but so he read it in German, and went by was it by the Einschloss or something in Austria, like Hitler just went in, so he understood, get my family, get out of here. So I'm saying it's a gadol, not so pashut. I mean, different gedolim had different cheshbonos. Let me get back to my point over here. Before we get to Tochecha, I just want to say one more thing. It was curious to me. What time is it? Yeah, it was curious to me why Rebbe Elazar ben Padas is the Marda Asra of the Sugya of Chanifus. And therefore, and turns it around later on in the Gemara to the importance of Hocheach Tochecha Misachas, first in the Gemara, as we're going to learn. But why Rabbi Elazar ben Padas? And the Gemara says, hear me out on this one, because I think I have a, the Gemara says in Yavamas, when I said the Gemara in Yavamas, everybody know what I'm going to say? What? No, I just, what?
The Gemara, when he was poor and the light came out of his forehead and he was smiling.
The Gemara does say that about Rabbi Elazar ben Padas, yeah. Had like a chet shell, but that's not what I'm talking about. Rabbi Elazar ben Padas was huge. I mean, they were all huge tzadikim, but he was noted for his righteousness. But the Gemara says that when he came to Eretz Yisrael, he had a habit of, I said this in two places and I want to go in order. Indulge me for a moment. There's a same story is in the Yerushalmi and Brachas, and also in the Bavli and Yavamas, but it's a little bit different. Over here it says, Rabbi Yochanan in the Yerushalmi. Rabbi Yochanan was the Rosh Yeshiva. He was the Rosh Yeshiva of Tveria, which was the biggest yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael at that time. She was Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan, he was Makarev, Reish Lakish. Right? So Rabbi Yochanan having mistabech. I don't know. He must have had. Also, it says that he was swimming in the Yarden, and that's where he saw Reish Lakish. But I always wonder why he was swimming in the Yarden. Why wasn't he swimming in the Kinneret? He lived in Tveria. So the pshat is the Kinneret is not, besides it doesn't have the flow, it's more dangerous because the Kinneret has an undercurrent which can carry you away. So I found in a few places that the swimming took place, the rechitza took place in the Yarden. Either the upper Yarden or lower Yarden, but not in the Kinneret because you know how it works. The water comes from Har Hermon, and snow melts, and that's where the springs are, from Har Hermon, and then it goes down the mountain into the Banyas, which is the Gemara calls Pamayas. The Gemara says this, and then it falls from the Pamayas into the area of Dan, which we call today Tel Dan. And then, Tel Dan and Banyas, falls down to Banyas, and then it goes into the Yarden. Yarden le Kinneret, the Kinneret the Yarden le Yam HaMelech. That's how the water flow works of Eretz Yisrael. So if you're standing in Tel Dan in the north, Bezras Hashem, we should be able to stand there, Bekarov, but if you're standing up there, so you're watching the whole, if you go to the Banyas, you're seeing the Bekarov Mayim from Eretz Yisrael. That's the beauty of the Banyas. And the Gemara tells us that when it goes into the Kinneret, it goes in one strip under the water from one side to the other. So there's an undercurrent there, which is dangerous. There's a lot of. So they used to swim in the Yarden. So the Gemara says like this, that Rabbi Yochanan having mistamech a little bit earlier. The Gemara talks about the din that when you see a Rebbe, you have to say Shalom Alecha Mari v'Rebbe. That's a din that you have to say Shalom Alecha Mari v'Rebbe. And the Gemara in Brachas, Yerushalmi in Brachas, talks about that's a shear of right, like when you go back 3 steps. So how long do you have to stay back there? Enough time to say Shalom Alecha Mari v'Rebbe, which is a funny kind of a shear. But that's the shear that it says in many things when you need the Chika takes Daled Amos to say Shalom Alecha Mari v'Rebbe. So, but Rabbi Yochanan was teaching this halacha, and the Gemara tells a story here that Rabbi Elazar ben Padas, like people, Rabbi Yochanan went in the streets of Tveria, and everybody came to greet Shalom Alecha Mari v'Rebbe. The Rosh Yeshiva was going through, and Rabbi Elazar ben Padas, both in Bavli and the Yerushalmi, says he was hiding someplace. He didn't go to greet You know those kind of people? Like you don't want to agree, you don't want to give Shalom Aleichem to the Rebbe. It was like saying the back, saying Shalom Aleichem to the Rebbe. So the Gemara says that Rabbi Yochanan was learning with Rabbi Yaakov Bar Idi. He was learning with Rabbi Yaakov Bar Idi. Who's Idi? Anybody know? Just while we're here, it's good to test our Bekias. Who is Idi? We know him. He was the Bar Beirav de Chad Yoima. Because he used to come to Rabbi Yochanan, and took him like a half year to get there and a half year to get back. I said, what are you doing? He said, going for one day. One day is a good thing. He traveled all year to stay by Rabbi Yochanan for 1 year. So that was the kind of learning that Rabbi Yochanan was Gadol Hador. So anyways, he was sitting there with Rabbi Yaakov Bar Idi, the son. V'haya Rabbi Lazar Chamilei. And Rabbi Lazar like sort of runs by, umitmar min kadmoi, and he was hiding from before him. Amar, Rabbi Yochanan said to Rabbi Yaakov Bar Idi, ha tarte milan haden bavlaya ovid. This Babylonian is doing too. He did not like Babylonians. Did not like them. He said there's two things that this Bavli is hurting me in. Chada d'loishal b'shleimi. First of all, why doesn't he say hello? Shalom aleichem Rebbe. Why doesn't he say hello? V'chada, and the other thing was d'loi amar shmuasa mishmi. He's walking around saying Torah, and he's not saying it in my name. He's saying my Torah, but he's not saying it in my name. Amar lei, he says a lot of people do that. This Rabbi Yaakov told him, was trying to be Mephias the Rebbe. He said a lot of people do that. Kachinu nogin gabe, and that's what the Babylonians do. They don't say hello. He told him. He brings a raya because Zeira loishal b'shlama de Rabbah. You see, Zeira never said hello to Rabbah. Like it's just like a Babylonian thing. Don't be offended by it. They just don't, You know what they say, like the difference, like, how does it go? Like, Germans leave without saying goodbye, and Jews say goodbye, but then they never leave. So, Babylonians, they don't say hello. It's their culture. But, okay, that doesn't help that he doesn't quote him. Why is he quoting? Why is he saying over Torah that he learned? Oh, he's a Talmud of Rabbi Yochanan. That's what's interesting. He was a Talmud of Rabbi Yochanan. There's no question. In fact, he came to Eretz Yisrael to learn from Rabbi Yochanan. So, anyway, so the Gemara says, he's walking, this Rabbi Yaakov, Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yaakov Bar Idi are walking in Tveria. And Chamilei, and he pointed out, Rabbi Yochanan, this was the end of his life. So Rabbi Yochanan pointed out, Chad Beis HaMedrash, like a tour guide. He pointed out a certain old Beis HaMedrash in Tveria. Maybe we see that Beis HaMedrash. Amar lei, and he told his Talmud, Hacha havi Rav Meir Yosef Darash. This is where Rav Meir used to teach. Rav Meir was much before in Tana. So Rav Meir used to teach in Tveria. Rav Meir was the one who was running after Acher, remember? So it was a Talmud of Rabbi Akiva. So, and Acher. So here it says, Hacha havi Rav Meir Yosef Darash va'amar Shmuasa min Shmei de Rabbi Shmuel. And this is where he used to say over the Torah of Rabbi Shmuel. V'lei amar Shmuasa min Shmei de Rabbi Akiva. And here in this particular base matter, he had a special makam kavua where he would say over the Torah of Rabbi Shmuel, but he wouldn't say over the Torah of his Rebbe, Rabbi Akiva. So why wasn't he saying over Torah of Rabbi Akiva? So Amar lei, so he asked him, why don't you say Torah of Rabbi Akiva? Amar lei, Kol Almin Yadin de Rav Meir Talmidai de Rabbi Akiva. I don't have to, he said, Rabbi Yochanan said, that Rav Meir didn't have to quote Rabbi Akiva because everybody knew that everything that Rav Meir said came from Rabbi Akiva. The chiddush was that when he wasn't saying something from Rabbi Akiva, he would quote Rabbi Shmuel Omer. So this was the klal that he said that when everybody knows that you're the Rebbe, that Rabbi Akiva is the Rebbe, and Kula Eli b'Rab Meir, according to Rab Meir, and Rab Meir is Kula Eli b'Rab Akiva. So everybody knows the Rebbe. So you don't have to quote the Rebbe. Everything you say is the Rebbe. Kula. So comes the Talmid of the Rabbi Akiva. Amar Lai. So Rav Yaacov Baridi. This was a perfect setup. Rabbi Yaacov Baridi said, "Don't be upset with Rabbi Elazar ben Padas, but it's Kula Alma Yadin to Rabbi Elazar Talmidei to Rabbi Yochanan, because everybody knows that he came here to learn with you. So this that he didn't quote you, don't be makbid on him. Don't be makbid on him." Another thing where it says, Mever kume ahudure tzilme. They continued to walk, and in Tveria, there was a statue of the Melech of Rome. It was still Roman that time. So it was a statue of the Melech of Rome, and the Chazal Hakadoshim did not want to look at that statue of the Roman. So they walked by the tzilme. Amerle, ma yispaligle. Why are we so apparently Rabbi Yochanan took him in a different route because they didn't want to see the what. So he said to him, "Why are you going a different route?" Iker loy aver kuma v'same. No, why don't you just close your eyes when you walk by? Amerle. So Rabbi Yaakov Baridi took advantage. He said, "Amerle Rabbi Elazar yois eved loy ava kumaisech." He didn't. Rabbi Elazar was giving you covered by not wanting to see you. So in other words, everybody's coming out and saying Shalom Aleichem Rebbe, which is the lashon that Rabbi Yochanan taught to say, but in Bavel, the way to give kavod was to hide, like not be in his face, not bother the Rebbe, whatever the story is, like Omar. Rabbi Yaakov Baridi Yodea Ata Lefayes. So he said to Rabbi Yaakov Baridi, "You're pretty good. Like you're pretty good at that. Yodea Ata Lefayes." So now we understand why he didn't say things in his name, because everybody knows. He explained to him, and also he understands, as the Yerushalmi, why he was hiding. So these two things that everybody. That's what Yerushalmi says. The Bavli, just to point something out here. The Bavli tells us a story in Yavamas. It's a little bit different. It says, Rabbi Elazar, famously apparently, Amar l'shmaitza bei midrashav le'amara b'shmei de Rabbi Yochanan. Here's a lashon we're more familiar with. So he was saying over halachos, Rabbi Elazar ben Padas, in Eretz Yisrael, and he wasn't saying the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Shama Rabbi Yochanan ikbid. Rabbi Yochanan was makbid on it. You know, what do we say to somebody who's like so makbid? Don't be so makbid. He's a makbid. Rabbi Yochanan was makbid. It was makbid. Which is interesting for our sugya. Ulagabe Rabbi Ami v'Rabasi, two other Talmidim. Amrulay, and they said to him, Loi kachaya maisa, you're being makbid. Talmidim told him, you're being makbid. And these two, by the way, Rabbi Ami and Rabasi, were Talmidim of Rabbi Elazar ben Padas at the same time. So Talmidei Rabbi Yochanan was a zaken, and Rabbi Elazar ben Padas was younger. So Rabbi Rabasi Amar Loi kachaya maisa b'beis knesset shel Tveria. He says, look, we're sitting here in Tveria, and everybody knows the story in Tveria. Beneger sheyesh b'reisha gluster, there was a sugya of a tumantara. Benechlako by Rabbi Elazar v'Rabbi Yosi, achikaru sefer Torah b'chamasam. So Gemara tells a story that too. This was at the end of the time, at the end of the time of the Tanoim. There was a machlokes in a Beis Knesset in Tveria. Such history in Tveria. There was a machlokes in the Beis Knesset in Tveria, and they're both holding a Sefer Torah, and they're getting like really, getting a ragged out of this thing, until the Ad Shekaru Sefer Torah b'chamasim. They're holding onto the Sefer Torah, Kila bringing a proof from the Sefer Torah. Sefer Torah rips in half. Karu, they ripped the Sefer Torah. Salkadaitach. Elaema shenikra Sefer Torah b'chamasim. It ripped. In other words, they didn't rip the Sefer Torah b'mesid, but the Sefer Torah ripped b'chamasim. V'hayasham Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma, and Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma was in the base medrash in the shul at that time. They were arguing about a beam. Amar, and he said, Tameani im lo yeh beis haknesses zu beis avodah zarah. This place is going to turn into a church. So we know where that is. V'chein hava. That's what the Gemara says. So comes Reb Ami and Reb Asi, and they say to the Rabbi Yochanan, like, what are you doing? You're being so makbid. Don't you know the story? That right here in Tiberia, they ripped the Sefer Torah and it became a church. What were they doing? They were doing with their Rebbe, which was the derech of Bavel to be very, I'm telling you what the Rishonim say, the derech of Bavel to be very upfront with your Tochecha. And being they were very upfront with the Tochecha, Rabbi Lazar ben Padas was a very straight shooter. Not the Rabbi Yochanan wasn't. Rabbi Yochanan was also like, and they told him, Rebbe, you're being too makbid. Who tells Rabbi Yochanan you're being too makbid? They told him you're being too makbid.
Is being makbid on his own covered, or just being makbid in your same
Shem on both. You wouldn't say hello to me.
Shem it says things like it brings gula and different things. It's like a big Indian.
Yeah, of course a big Indian. So, but here's two. But in Bavel they didn't do it. Reish Lakish was the one who said it's a big Indian. But Reish Lakish Rabbi Yochanan. But here they tell him a story about two great Talmidei Chacham that the Sefer Torah ripped. So the Gemara tells us, and it turns into Beis Avodah Zarah. So the Gemara Hadar Ikbid. So Rabbi Yochanan became more makbid. Amar Chavrusa Nami. Not only you're telling me that now you're telling me that he's an equal to me. He's by Chavrusa. He's holding a piece of the Sefer Torah. I'm holding a piece of the Sefer Torah. Like, you make it worse. So that was Reb Ami and Reb Asi.
Who were the two guys learning Sefer Torah?
That was Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Yossi. Tanaim. Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah, probably. Rabbi Lazar and, I don't know. There were so many. I don't know. It would have been in the time of Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma, who was in the time of Hananiah ben Trajan, right? So that was it. So, anyways, is it like, what are you giving like equivalence to me and to? That's how makbid he was. So he's holding a piece. I'm holding a piece. Like he's a day. I'm a day. Hapitom. Ola gabe Rabbi Yaakov Bar Idi, until Rabbi Yaakov Bar Idi. That's our friend from the Yerushalmi, and he comes along and he says, "Listen, Kasher tziva Hashem es Moshe, kain tziva Moshe es Yeshua. Everything, b'chein asi Yeshua. Everything that Yeshua said, right? He never quotes Moshe Rabbeinu. Yet the Torah tells us that everything that Yeshua said he got from Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe kibul Torah Sinai sarli Yeshua. Like he said, davar mikol asher tziva Hashem es Moshe. V'chikol davar shamer Yeshua hayomer lem kach amer li Moshe. That's Rabbi Yaakov Bar Yidi's point. So Yeshua had to quote Moshe all the time. He didn't have to say all the time kach amer li Moshe. Elo Yeshua yoshev v'doresh tam. Everybody knew that what they're hearing in Yeshua's words are divrei Moshe. So therefore, Yisrael, therefore, af Rabbi Elazar Talmidcha Yoshev v'doresh stam. He's darshaning. He's here in Eretz Yisrael. He's here in Teferi. He came to be your Talmud. So I was enjoying the Shinui Lashon from the Bavli to the Yerushalmi. But in both cases, Rav Yaakov Bar Idi was like much more diplomatic or softer with his Tochecha, but this is a sugya of Tochecha, which revolved around Rabbi Lazar ben Padas. The whole sugya revolved around Rabbi Lazar ben Padas. So he's the whole story. And since he's the whole story, so now we have 6 things that Rabbi Lazar ben Padas is commenting on the Yisur of Chanifah, because to him, as bringing the contribution of Bavel into the Galilean, culture, is you have to say it. He was like yeshivish. Just have to say it. And you have to say it strongly, and you have to make your point. And it doesn't make a difference. Let the chips fall where they will. And there was Tochecha, but any way you learn it, there was a clear Tochecha from the Talmidim, because of Rabbi Lazar ben Padas, from the Talmidim to the great Rosh Hashiva, Rabbi Yochanan. So you see how far, and by the way, at the end of the day, even though he says in the Yerushalmi, I'm makabel, he didn't even say I'm makabel, he says, you're good at this, ata yodei lefayes. Amar lahu. So Rabbi Yochanan turns around to this original, the ones who told him that like the Sefer Torah burnt. Amar lahu b'mnei ein atem yoidin lefayes kiven idi chaverein. Why don't you learn from him how to talk to Rosh? It was almost like further makbid. For Rabbi Yochanan, my time of kapid kulahai, right? The Gemara. Why was Rabbi Yochanan so makbid? So he gives a whole drasha over here that agura ba'alecha elamim. He was makbid, not on his covet. He was makbid on omer davar b'shem omrei. And the reason the Gemara says that he was makbid is because when you leave this world, the only thing you leave in this world is the things that people say in your name. So, kol omer davar b'shem omer, one of the things it says is sifsaisav doivavos bekever, like you're keeping the person alive. And there's a Maila David HaMelech says in Tilim Samach Aleph where he says agura ba'olcha olamim, 2 worlds, that there's like an Indian. Should be careful about this. There's an Indian to leave something, like we come into this world and then you leave this world. There's a big Indian to leave something here, make a contribution. So how do you live in 2 worlds at once? Agura ba'olcha olamim. So how do you live in 2 worlds at once? The answer is you leave over divrei Torah and sifsais of divrei bekever. And that's why he was so makbid. Rabbi Yochanan was already a zaken. He was very makbid that things should be said in b'shmai. The Tachlis, we don't find that he was makabel. This he complimented him on a nice try, but he was makbid on Rabbi Lazar. He called him. It was a few times in Chazal and Shas. He called him Ahu Bavloi. He did not like the whole derech of the Babylonians. He was impatient with it. So okay, let's part 1. I just want to eat some kugel. I don't want to eat kugel. I want you to eat some kugel, and then we'll pick up with Tochecha. We'll go until session. Yeah, we have 10 minutes, and then we're going to finish. Yeah, sure. Was
You in that Mark?
it's moments or places?
Still recording?
That was it. No.
I'm sure he said exactly the same place.
It goes on the same video. Whenever I stop it, I have to start a new, like a new part two, new video.
Oh, I didn't stop it.
Oh, just going the whole time?
I muted the mic.
Okay, hello again. Okay, is everybody ready? David, can you do me a big favor? Can you just refill this with just from that urn there? Do you mind? Right there. Let's just put some hot water in. See straight ahead. Thank you very much. Sorry to be mishamish in a coin.
Are we going to explain why that Veer gave that cute cheer? It was Chanifah when everyone was like nodding their heads?
Oh, yeah. No.
Yes,
No. I don't see why that's Chanifah in light of what we said. Like,
Why isn't it Chanifah? Doing it to get money.
That's nice.
You didn't do
They're
anything
telling him
wrong.
he's a Talmud Chacham.
What?
They were telling him he's a Talmud Chacham.
Okay.
And that's dangerous, I think.
What if it's
Thank
just
you very much. What? No, good.
What if it's just implying it, but they didn't say it?
I mean, I guess that's all right. Okay, listen, it's good to be, I'm in a particularly impatient mood, but yes, you're right. But I just, it offended me.
Well, the
I
way
just thought you had offended me.
his attitude of we're just doing it to indulge him shows that their kavanah was
Integrity.
But let's say they said okay, because he's saying Torah.
Want to give a share, but integrity, I don't know, like, if I was a big veer and I wanted to go to Brisk and give a shear, they're not going to let me give a shear in Brisk. I could tell you. But it's not going to happen. There'll be a integrity standard, you know. What's a stam?
You're not going to say to him, you're such an Amar. It's why you...
Okay. I'm starting. Ready? So I want to, yes. I want to read together into source 9, Igros Moshe, and the story in this Shuvah of Rav Moshe Feinstein. The story is that there was a very wealthy person who was Machal Shabbos b'far Hesia, and he came to Shul, which he had been a supporter of the Shul, and he wanted an aliyah. So now, this is interesting to me, obviously, but it's the question of whether you could give a Machal Shabbos an aliyah or not is not such a good question, because you can give a Machal Shabbos an aliyah. It doesn't say anywhere that you can't give a Machal Shabbos an aliyah, and the proof of it is that you can give a Machal Shabbos an aliyah is because in the poskim it says, the early poskim it says that you shouldn't give a person an aliyah if they're violating that thing. Like you don't give them the parsha of Shabbos and read Shabbos, because that's like making a bazayin of Shabbos. You know, what? Oh, like Agrippas. That's Chanifah. What you're not allowed to do is, like, so let's say he's wearing a woolen linen, sports coat. So you don't give him the parsha of Shatnez as a, so, but what Ramesh is talking about, the guy wants an aliyah, and standard shul procedure is, well, give him psicha, or give him hagba, that's what, hagba, that's good. So, so Ramesh says the question here is, is it chanifos or not? In other words, here's a guy, let's say a case, who's not keeping the Torah, and he comes into the Beis HaKnesses, and you want to give him kavod. So what is the message there to him and to everybody around him if you're giving kavod to somebody because I'm just making it into a radical case, but if it's somebody who's, let's say, a Russia, or let's say at least a Machal Shabbos.
Mother's not Jewish, I've seen.
Get an aliyah?
No.
Psicha.
No, he thinks he's Jewish, that type of sensitive.
Right. Every Suffolk Yisrael is psicha. To the point that it's the point is something. If somebody gets psicha, yeah, it means one or two things. Either your wife is in her ninth month, or you're a Suffolk Yisrael. Yeah. No, psicha is a huge cover. And by Ne'ilah, people pay like 100,000 shekel for psicha for Nila, because Nila is a school for opening up the Shemayim. So I don't know why we jumped to psicha to give psicha. Also Hagbah. So Hagbah is Noitel Schar Kulam. So it's like the biggest cover. So why is it so pasha to do that? But anyways, Rav Moshe talks about Chanifah, and this is what he says: Kol Iser Chanufa, Kol Iser Chanufa hu rak b'kegoin zeh. It's only in the following case: Hu haskama al ha'Iser v'al din sheker. It has to be that whatever you're doing appears as my word, as if you're agreeing with his behavior. That's a tough question, by the way. Like, what is our message? Our messaging here?
If you're mechaber the fact that he's about stucco, then you're giving him cover for being about stucco.
But then the kids, like they say, okay, so I don't want to be frum, but I'll become about tzedakah.
I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, but
No, that's the problem. But are you distorting the Masorah or not?
Okay.
There's nothing wrong giving them covet. I don't care about that. The question is, you're distorting the Masorah's HaTorah in a certain way.
And you saw saying chayta, we're all chayta. So how do we anybody?
Yeah, but we're embarrassed by it. We hide.
What if someone's
This is okay. So let's
someone's
hear Rav
doing
Moshe talk.
like flagrantly doing an avera, but the aliyah has nothing to do with that.
Correct.
He
So
does,
the question that you have to ask is, giving him this kibbud and the Beis HaKnesses, as the case is, giving this kibbud in the Beis HaKnesses, is that condoning his lifestyle? And
where you draw the line? Where someone talks to someone is not embarrassed?
You can't see.
Halachos Shabbos has the din of a goy.
But there's certain averas.
when we talk about Machal Shabbos Varhesia, we're talking about that. Like, let's say he drove to shul that morning. It's a chutzpah. There's a certain chutzpah, and I can tell you, I'm not a big kanoi in this because I'm weak when it comes to hurting people, but that they're looking for validation for a lifestyle, and you can sort of like buy yourself out. There's such a thing. You could be potent yourself, by giving a lot of money or it's not only money, like lawmakers, the same type of thing, like this a lot of chanifos goes on there. So he says, it has to be haskama al iser val din sheker keha dahasam da agripos shamru loy achinu ata. It has to be a case like the case of Agrippas, and that's why I said it's called Agrippa. Gvura Agrippa, like the culture, it has to be like an Agrippas culture, which was definitely wrong. Like at the end of the day, what Rav Nassan is teaching us is that was like a very bad move, caused the Churban Beis Hamikdash. Might have seemed like a good move, but it was a very bad move, and that's what we have to take away from this. Shenimsa sha'imrim shekasher l'malchus. Now people are going to say, okay, anybody can be the king of Israel. You don't have to be Moser Nefesh and tell the guy. They were punished in that case. They had no chiyuv to be Moser Nefesh. Like if there was a question of life or death, they don't have a chiyuv to be Moser Nefesh. But not mishum shalai hayalam leirosh yeshir hargu. They shouldn't have been afraid at all of him. He wasn't killing people. Maybe they would be in his bad graces or something like that. But he's not going to kill you. Insult the mayor or the prime minister. Not going to kill you. But nobody wants to do that because what do you want to be on the bad list?
This is a tekuf also. Remember at the time when all the claims was also not really right.
It was all chanifos. That was the Agrippa. They were all buying their way into this into the covenant. That's Gevura Shel Agrippa. That's exactly what we're talking about, and that's what led to the whole corruption over here.
Even today, if we had a non-religious mayor visiting KSY, wouldn't give him cover?
It wouldn't in any way. Who's talking about not giving cover? Cover to President Trump or President Biden. Yeah, that's a different thing.
You wouldn't even cut it.
I wouldn't give him cut. I would not in any way, I would hope that I would not in any way encourage that type of behavior for him or for anybody around him. So in other words, I wouldn't de facto validate that behavior. If I do, so you can stop me. Anyways, the mayor's from.
Maybe.
So you don't have to be Moshe Nefesh, but what we learned from Agrippas is you're not allowed to be afraid. And also if it's going to hurt you, that's the important thing here. If it's going to, a lav has to, if you're afraid you're going to die, you don't have to be, you could be over on a lav. But if you're afraid it's going to hurt you, certainly politically or something like financially, so then you're not allowed to do a lav. Avlahachnif bin yanim, and this is the klal, this is a good hagdar that Ramesh is saying. Lahachnif bin yanim shloi shayochim loimer shu maskim. So let's say you give kavod Yisrael in a way that it's not apparent in any way that I'm being maskim to what you're doing wrong. Efsher she'ein iser klal, efsher she'ein iser klal, kigoin l'shabchoi b'yoifyoi. Wow, are you handsome? Oy b'chachmasai. You're so smart. B'nyanei ha'olam midoisav. Even if you're magzim a little bit in how wonderful he is, he's such a wonderful person. This is true of everybody who introduces, anybody. I once saw, I couldn't put my finger on it, but maybe it's Rabbi Yaacov Haber left a letter to his son. There's a famous letter, Rabbi Yaacov Haber to his son. It might be at the beginning of Hashal and Shuvas, I couldn't find, but where he implores his son never to be magzim in his title, or when you're putting together the tshuvas, not to be magzim in the titles of the people that wrote, because it's all Chanifah. So efshir leike iser, but if you're just complimenting somebody, it could be that's not the iser, and this is a very important thing. Kivin she'ein zeh ke'ilu she'gemara, because it's not like the case of the Gemara. In other words, we don't know except for the case of the Gemara. V'chein l'chabdoi b'psicha sa'arayin, nacham al psicha. V'chein l'chabdoi b'psicha sa'arayin, shu rak kavod ba'alma. L'nira b'zeh shum heskim l'maisei maisav harayim, ki la'akol yadua ma mechabda noisei. Like everyone knows, you're only giving him psicha. So ein zeh b'chlal chanufa she'asrinam b'saita, that the Gemara says in Saita. Now, I'm the last one that's ever going to argue with Rav Moshe Feinstein, not the Gadol Adar. But I just want to say it's hakol l'fi ha'inyan v'azman v'hashah. It's not to me so simple that that's always the case, that everybody realizes, like, in other words, sometimes the validating, I think to me, sometimes when you validate, you give kavod to somebody in a way, a religious kavod, there's a messaging going on there. And the messaging sometimes is that, like, you can get away with it if you're rich or if you're powerful or if you're, and that is a perversion of Torah. I don't think that if I was sitting with Rav Moshe Feinstein, if I was sitting with Rav Moshe Feinstein, I would do what Rav Nosson didn't hide. But I don't think he would disagree. That he's saying he doesn't think that giving him psicha is a ma'aseh of chanifos. But if it is a ma'aseh of chanifos, then it's aser, and it's aser deraisa to do.
So it has to be validating somebody.
Be very careful. But what are you getting at? You're not, there's no agenda there. But again, it's.
No, could we validating a behavior that was
We'd have to see.
I'm talking about this because we see these things all the time. I don't want to be critical, but we see all the time that people are not careful about it, and then all of a sudden you have a different Yiddishkeit.
You would have to see a heskim l'maisa for it to be also according to Rav Moshe, even if it's a big cover.
You're reading like I'm reading it. What he's saying is that like nira mizeh shum heskim l'maisav haroim. In other words, psicha has nothing to do with his chilul Shabbos.
Once there's a validation, you don't have that sentence doesn't apply anymore. That's what you're saying.
I think. If there's anybody in the shul, any kid in the shul or any adult in the shul, that's saying, okay, so like, you get away with it, like it's okay. So then you've corrupted the Torah. Now, I'm not suggesting everyone has to become like a strict maniac over here, but I'm just saying, like, it could just, this achinuat like strikes me as a very real problem. So I just let's take a let's just 12. I want to finish 12:24 is chatzos, and I want to make sure we're learning or doing something chashuv at chatzos, and we'll finish 12:30. Yeah.
Outside of the money, in the context of the kiruv world, so it's not an issue of somebody's giving you a check, so you're honoring him, but where does that
Honoring them at a dinner, you mean?
Because that's a massive world, which is not, the
When I started in this world, there was no havamina of honoring a Mechalel Shabbos. That was what they did in the temples. That's what they did in the, in yeshivish places. You didn't honor people that were Mechalel Shabbos, including politicians and goyim. But then it became. Yeah, I'll say, yeah. We have Trump psicha in our shul. How would everyone feel about that?
That's sort of thing they were doing.
It's psicha.
Better than giving you a camel.
Okay. Ebbes. Yeah. Hagba. Okay, so there's a chiyuv Tochecha. I just want to go through this for a minute.
Well, Mo was asking, I think, that what if it's not about money? Just like you're doing it for cure purposes to make you guys feel good, like a chinuata, just don't keep on right? Like it's a different agenda.
I don't know what it means. It's not about money. There was some reason, pretty obvious, that the people wanted to please Agrippa.
I agree, that's not what I'm saying, but in general, let's say you're being nice to somebody. It's okay. You're Mechal Shabbos. Don't worry about your Goyish girlfriend, like because you don't want to alienate them.
Right.
I bring
So,
a
sir.
guest into shul who's not from Shabbos, but he's coming for Shabbos because he's inspired about Shabbos. Is he able to get him out? Like, are we able to make him feel good at shul for being there, or is it, yes or no, black or white?
I don't know. I think it's Hakol Fi Ha'inyan. But I also see a distinction, again, I'm not Mr. Posek over here, but I see a distinction between somebody who's coming to learn and somebody's coming because they were invited to a kiddush, or even because they have a yahrzeit or something like that. They're not coming to learn, and they're almost like looking down. So, I tend to to be full disclosure. I tend to be allergic to those kind of things. I just don't. I don't like. In other words, where everybody's machabed a gevir, I tend to walk the other way, which is why it took so many years to build our shul. I just don't like doing that. I don't know, but I don't mind fundraising. I don't mind asking people for money. But I don't like doing chanifas. Just personally, I just don't like doing chanifas. But I'm just to answer your question. Somebody's trying to grow, and you want to make them feel good about growing, and you figure out a way to do it without condoning his behavior. So I think that's a nice thing. See, somebody was talking before he left at Pinshower. Was talking about the Torah and Reb Nachman, about how it's so important to find the Nekuda Tova in every person and all that. Everybody knows. And how effective that is to find the Nekuda Tova in every person. But so it's not a stereotype to this. You should find the Nekuda Tova. Look at what Moshe Rabbeinu did. Moshe Rabbeinu, Bonim Atem Lashem Elokeichem, right? You're how wonderful you are, and then, but at the same time, he said, Mamrim Hayisim Im Hashem Elokeichem. So the whole Sefer is called. This is like an important diuk. The whole Sefer Dvarim, Rashi says at the beginning, is called Sefer Tochecha. whole thing is called Tochecha. A lot of it wasn't Tochecha. A lot of it was like saying very nice things. So what's the answer? Part of giving Tochecha is to say nice things. Which brings me into this Rambam that I want to say. The Rambam says, read it in the Rambam, I'll have the same thing as you. The Rambam has a whole list of things that will stop Rambam and Hilchos Tshuva. A whole list of things that will stop a person from doing tshuva. Noyalim darchei tshuva. They just stop a person from doing tshuva. One of the things that that stops a person from being about tshuva in the real sense is if you're soneas ha'tochachos. Says that already in Mishnah. Soneas ha'tochachos. Somebody who can't stand when somebody else points something out to them and tells them how to be better. Ever meet anybody like that? We're all like that. So soneas ha'tochachos. He doesn't leave open, says the Rambam, there's no way that this person's ever going to grow. How are you ever going to grow if you're not open to hearing how to grow? Because I'll tell you, let me say it, because if you're not going to hear it from somebody else, you're not going to hear it from yourself either. You want things that make you feel good. So everybody likes compliments and everybody likes that. That's good. It's good to give kavod and compliments. You see the Gemara says, but you have to be able to, I guess, take tochecha, and if somebody doesn't know how to give it. Tochecha geremes l'tshuva shebizman shemaydian leila adam chatov u'machlim e'maisai chayzer b'tshuva. This is a strong word, no? Let's read that again. Bizman shemaydian leila adam chatov, fair enough, u'machlim e'maisai chayzer b'tshuva. What do you think about that, Mo? Machlimim oisai. What does it mean?
Embarrass them.
Humiliate him, yeah.
Kind of thing they say.
It's a little bit different than busha.
Right.
Kind of thing that now they say, nowadays it doesn't work.
Okay, we have a Torah. Moshe Kasav b'Torah. Yeah. Zachar al Tishka brings Mamim Mayisem. He's bringing exactly what I just said. That you see in the Devarim that Moshe Rabbeinu told it like it is. Mamrim Hayisem. Amongst all the good things that he said. Hashem lochem leiv ladas. Hashem didn't. Bunch of idiotic people he called us. Am novel. V'loi chacham. Chen Yeshayahu, says the Rambam. Look at Yeshayahu. Hoichiach es Yisrael v'amar hoi goy choyte. Yoda ashor koineu. Now this is how careful you have to be, because Yeshayahu got in trouble for saying ki tmeis v'sayim anoichi u'mitoich am tmeis v'sayim anoichi yeshevas. And Hashem said you're allowed to say you're a tmeis v'sayim, but you're not supposed to talk about everybody around you am tmeis v'sayim. At the same time, the whole sefer of Yeshayahu is either giving nechama or giving tochecha, and he was called a mochiach.
But there the problem was that he wasn't talking to them, he was talking to Hashem.
Yes, but there was no point. Very good. Very good. He was frustrated and
Right, I mean,
talking
for them,
to
you
Hashem.
get to tichacha, to me, to be an advocate. I think that's so.
V'chein tzivo HaKadosh Baruch Hu, ha'kel lo yichiach l'chatayim. Shenamar kra b'garoin al tachsoich. Don't spare the, don't stop. Just tell it like it is. V'chein kol ha'neviim. All the Nevi'im ha'yichichu Yisrael ad shechazru b'tshuva. That's what the Nevi'im did. So why all of a sudden we decided that, okay, we don't do this anymore. But that's what all the Nevi'im did. Lefichach, says the Rambam. We got at least to the 12th century, right? Lefichach, says the Rambam, tzarech adam lahamid b'chol kahol v'kahol. Every congregation has an obligation to hire Yisrael chacham gadol v'zakein. There's interesting qualifications here. Chacham gadol v'zakein v'yirei shamayim min ne'urav. No about Shuvas. But Ahuv Lahem, why? It's not about like who's a good person, who's not a good person. It's about who will have the ability to give Tochecha. So you have to be like spotless, and you have to be a Zakein. You have to be a Chacham, and a Yerushalayim. That's also one, right? Min no Urav. The Ahuv Lahem. That's the hardest of them all. And they like you. But the job of the Kehillah is to find such a person and be mochiach. So what the like I saw a lot of Rabbanim in Europe, so they said that you have to hire such a person, but I'm not that person. I'll hire somebody else besides me, and they would hire a magid or a mochiach, or that's mashkiach and or shiva. Like, it doesn't have to be everybody's job. In that sense, the Rambam says there's a chiyuv on every kehillah to do this. Shiyahei, and his job is mochiach l'rabim u'machziron b'tshuva, and his job is to get people to do tshuva. V'zeh shesoynes ha'teichachos, but the guy who can't stand hearing it, ain't no bala b'chich, he don't come to shul. V'lo shemei advar, lefichach yamoid b'chatoisav, shehem beinav toivim. So he's not going to come. He doesn't want to hear this stuff. I don't need to hear somebody telling me what I'm doing wrong. And therefore, he just hangs out at home or wherever, and he doesn't listen. Or worse, he just, criticizes the mochiach and uses all kinds of defense mechanisms or money to bring down the mochiach. And this guy nothing's ever going to become of him, says the Rambam. So like, this is like a fascinating thing that the Tochecha, like, is something that everybody has, like every kehillah has as part of Yiddishkeit. You have to have a Sefer Torah, you have to have a Gabbai, you have to have a Rav, Pesach, let's say, and you have to have a Malamed Tinaikis, and you have to have a Mochiach. And the purpose of this Mochiach, and this is not just in Elul, and it's not just in Tishrei, purpose of this Mochiach is Hochiach, Tochecha, is Amisecha, because otherwise how are we as a kehillah going to grow and do tshuva if nobody's telling us how to do it? So what you have here, the Rambam's saying this is monei tshuva. So on an individual basis, one has to be able to, he's talking more about being able to listen Tochecha. We have to make sure there's somebody around that's going to give Tochecha. And as I said before in the upper Marmakos, which I just skipped, that the Hocheach Tochecha Amisecha goes together, interesting, with like Sisnas Achicha Bilvavecha Hocheach Tochecha Amisecha. So like this is like a real two-faced. because what he's doing is, I really hate you. This is like the ultimate Chanifah. Like, in my heart, I think you're like a nobody, but I'm not going to say, I'm going to say nice things to you.
Nobody, you're despicable. In other words,
Yeah,
nobody
like
is
Sisna. Wow.
It's like
I hate you, but I'll be nice to you.
Yeah, because I'm going to get something out of it. It's despicable.
nowadays, who is the job of the Rav of every shul? Nowadays, who's the Mochia?
I don't know.
Who's the Mochiach in this shul?
There's a Rambam.
Just the Kehillah has to
You want it? You want the job? You do. You'd be very good.
Is that why you give lollipops to the kids so you're ahuv and you could be their?
No, that's pure Chanifahs on my part. That's. Look, it's. As I get older, I'm realizing there's more halachas and mitzvahs that we've just like put aside because they're in the too hard pile, and I'm feeling like more and more like let's bring back Torah to the Jewish people. But this is so fundamental because the Rambam says there's no derech of growth and there's no derech of tshuva, and more than that, there's a corruption of the actual Maseres HaTorah if there's chanifos and if there's not tochecha. I just want to let this last thing, and then yes, the answer is yes. You can ask questions. Just give me one second. Just this last thing that I was thinking about. By Yosef, the Torah says that they hated each other. It was bad. They hated each other. They could not speak peacefully with Yosef. The brothers of Yosef could not speak peacefully with Yosef. Says Rashi, this is a terrible thing to say about the brothers, that they couldn't speak nicely with Yosef, but you also see their shvach. So interesting Rashi, right? That they were not over, but rather they did. Right there, I just saw this in the They were not, this was a Mida Taiva. Later on, now I was thinking about this, like, Mitoich Genusam Atoshemeya Shivcham, or Shvacham. So is that like, what does that mean? Is that like a thing that whenever you say something, like when you have something negative, say something about somebody, so say something positive also? Is that what, like Rashi said, like, they had a Maila also. Like, don't lose the fact that they had a Maila. What was their Maila? That they weren't Echad B'Peh Echad B'Leiv, and which means what? That they didn't do Chanifah. So here's what I saw in the Svarim, like what a unbelievable thing. Vayitin es koilo b'chik, go all the way to the end of the story, Yosef. And Yosef says, Ani Yosef, Haod Avichai. And famously, so famous I thought Rashi says it, but I don't think it does. Abba Kohen Bardlo Amar, Medrash says, Oilanu miyoim adin, oilanu miyoim ha Tochecha, Yosef, Kitanon shel Shvatim hayu, v'lai hayu yicholam lamed b'tochachasei. So the pshat is, in other words, when he said, Ani Yosef, Od Avichai, that was such a strong Tochecha, and this tells us about the word Tochecha. Because I saw that the Beis HaLevi says the Tochecha here was when he said Ha'od Avichai. But I saw other Mefarshim earlier in the Beis HaLevi said no. The Tochecha was when he said Ani Yosef. That was the Oiliyom Hadin Oiliyom HaTochecha. But I saw in the Svarim that they say that how come the Shvatim were able to be makabel this Tochecha from Yosef, ki'ilu the Tochecha that we're going to get when we come before the Kisei HaKavod? And the answer is, mitoich shvachan, mitoich genusan atoshemeya shvachan. Go back to the beginning of the story, they were not echad b'pev, echad b'leiv. And right is right. And the minute he said, Ani Yosef, however you want to learn, the Tochecha was, the minute he said that, then their integrity popped up. And their truthfulness popped up. And that's what Rashi means when he says that not that you're supposed to say something good about somebody while you say something bad about somebody. No, the gnus became the very negative midah within them became the way that they became Balei Tshuva, and they were makabel the Tochecha, which is a gewaldige idea. Who said before you want to ask a question? Yeah. What do you say?
Going back to the Mishnah on the Rambam, we do find that both by Moshe Rabbeinu and Yaakov Avinu that they waited with Tochecha until right before they die. And Chazal say because you don't want to push the person away, meaning he wasn't Mochech Reuven, so Reuven wouldn't leave him and go be David Beisav. And we learn from
so you got to find the right time.
You wait mamash till the end because the person might run away from you if you give him Tochecha. But over here the Rambam kind of says, don't go out with it in the shul, everyone.
But that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it the right way at the right time. And that's like something, Zil Gemar, that we all have to learn how to do it the right way at the right time.
The Rambam is talking about the din on you to seek out Tochecha, not the din on giving Tochecha.
We should be...
He's talking about the
individual
has to find someone to give Tochecha himself.
I was Makatzer Darki, but Hochech Tochecha Zamisecha is the Iker mitzvah of giving, of the Torah. Then there's also a thing that Im Kain, what if I'm the Makabel? So the Rambam says, if you're not willing to be Makabel Tochecha, you're never going to grow, you're never going to become Batshuva, you're never going to do Tshuva. And that's all year round. You have to have somebody like a paid guy that's sitting there to give Tochecha.
The end of the story is that the Daishlein, the Seif Yom of Moshe Rabbeinu says, and because you were chayta with the Mei Meriva, you're not going into Eretz Yisrael.
Wow, yeah. But also the end of the story, that the Birchas Yaakov at the end of the story were rough, and they were rough. I want to, just because I don't want to hold you up, I'm not going anywhere, but I just want to share with you one final thing, and that is just a thought, based on a lot of the Reb Tzaddik that we've been learning, and something, what I've been saying lately is that, you make it Asher Yotzer, and then you say Elokai Neshama Shenosata Bi, and that's the order. And the pshat is, I think about this a lot, like every morning. It's not about like, oh, I went to the bathroom, wasn't that great? That's not what it's about. Asher Yotzer Sadam Machachma is about like you created a fantastic goof. Like it's all miraculous, and it's a fantastic goof. And then you came Elokai Neshama Shenosata Bi. You took the goof and you put a neshama in it. And so the goof is a kli for the neshama. This is something we should do chazar on every single day, I think. That Hashem he made this goof. I'm standing by the oilam on neshamas. Like imagine the kisei hakavod is a place where the neshamas, you get neshamas. That's where neshamas are made. So imagine like this goof standing in front of the kisei hakavod, whatever that means, however you want to imagine that, and receiving a neshama. That's what happens to us every single day. And you get this neshama, so the goof becomes the way that our neshama could express itself. In other words, the neshama is in ruchnius, but the goof is the way that the HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings himself, if you will, into this world. And the main instrument of the goof, which can manifest the neshama, is the dibur. So that's the main thing. And Hashem, the whole main thing, it was Vayipach Ba'apav Nishmas Chaim. And there's a lot to say about it, and there's a lot that I have said about it, and we'll say about it, Hashem. But I just want to say one very simple thing, that when a person, so here's this kind of pipeline from HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kisei HaKavod into my neshama, giving me the instrument of a goof to be able to house the neshama, and then a peh to be able to speak out that which is through this pipe, and that's what it is to be Jewish. What it is to be Jewish, I know it's a broad term, but what it is to be Jewish is, you have a neshama, is that this was planted within my goof, and this partnership is able to talk, and the peh is being mofia what the neshama and the whole marechet contains. So dahainu, let's say a person's echad belev, echad bepeh, echad bepeh, echad belev. He's not tochecha kabari. It's not just lacking in integrity. What's happening is violating your whole purpose for existence. The whole reason that we exist in this world is to be able to bring Hashem's, to bring that neshama into the world. And as we learned before, and to let something stick there even after something should stick. So try to do something that's just going to be a lasting contribution. Divrei Torah, build a building, whatever you're going to do, just do something. But do something which is going to be lasting. Having children, if you're zocha, is fantastic, But this is but if you short circuit that pipeline, and now echad belev ve'echad bepeh, so now I violated the very existence, and not even just Torah. Torah is what you're supposed to be putting in there and bringing out. But even worse than that, you're doing chanifos. So if a person is chalakut, and pitui, and he's not just that he's not dependable, but look at all these things that Rebbe Lazar said, right? Neifel b'gehenna means that you don't, all these things, maybe af la'olam. I just want to say one thing, that af la'olam is, af is vayipach ba'apav nishmas chaim. That's how the neshama came into us. And if we're not using it properly, then the charon af comes. That's what Ramosha Cardavaro says in the end of the Tomer Devara. So is this af or that af? And what we're looking for always is erech apayim. So that's maybe af la'olam. Ubarin shebemei iman. I know I'm holding up a minute, but I just want to say this. What's the touch of ubarin shebemei iman? We ask the question. What do unborn babies have to do with this? Because an unborn baby is a shtik neshama. Ro'a misofa olam, like Rabbi Lazar ben Padas says, a ner dolok al roishai, ro'a misofa olam. The Malach teaches him the whole Torah. The whole Torah. He's a shtik neshama. Now, Sitra Apiv, now comes into this world and he has to do what he was created to do, and he has to give forth all that he was created to do. But here's this guy, boom, Chanifah, afilu ubarin shebemei imai makalal inais. They're makalal him. So what are we going through this whole procedure for? If people like you are messing up the whole thing. So that's what I want to say tonight. Thank you for listening, and Hashem should give us the koach. Let's say we're zeicha to learn through Chatzos, and Hashem should help that the chatufim, the injured, the dangers of being Jewish these days. Hashem should save us and help us from everything, and we should all have Piska Tava and Shana Tova U'Masuka.
Amen. Amen. I wonder if I might. The Rav at the beginning asked for this of Kehillat Shivtei Yeshurun. The essence of Kehillat Shivtei Yeshurun is
what?